You were tuned in. I mean, my God, I was tuned into something else, but you were tuned into this whole cryptocurrency.
Well, I do have a patent on a virtual currency that's from 1996. So the Keiser patent, U.S. patent 5950176. It's a virtual specialist patent, how to trade virtual currencies, virtual securities with a virtual currency. So that's what I patented. So when I heard about Bitcoin in 2011, it was a leap beyond what I was thinking about, because all the virtual currencies and digital currencies up until then were centralized to some degree. All market making, all federal banks, all political considerations regarding money are all centralized. So the thing about Bitcoin that breaks it from everything else is that it's decentralized. And how do you create that decentralized network? And I think it's interesting because, again, getting back to Buckminster Fuller, a lot of his writings, from you look through it through a political lens, you would say this is not capitalism. This is something else. This is maybe the opposite of capitalism, and yet the result are tools that enable those who could call themselves capitalists to do fantastic work as capitalists. But there are a lot of elements to this post-internet age. Like we have the free open source software movement. You have Linux, which is essentially free software. You have Richard Stallman was big, and his idea of free, unlicensed software. The Lawrence Lessig's work with the Creative Commons license, which is outside of the trademark and patent system. And during the early part of the internet age, there was this tremendous, and you would appreciate this, and you were there as well. There was a moment in the internet's history before it became completely corporatized, where there was this feeling of freedom of expression that was going to be this huge movement. And then the internet became completely corporatized. And it wasn't until Bitcoin came around that we had a new chapter in this idea of distribution and decentralization and individual empowerment and individual journeys. And I always compare Bitcoin to shamanism and kind of spiritualism and things like this, where people have the freedom to delve into their own spiritual journeys because they have unconfiscatable money that's never debasing in value. So they have no worries. In other words, you achieve individual sovereignty and you can just pursue spirituality. And I think that's where Bitcoin is heading. I think everyone ultimately achieves individual sovereignty. The whole idea of wealth changes dramatically itself. I mean, this would be a Buckminster Fuller idea, that his idea of wealth was very, very radically different than what most people consider to be wealth. So if you take that and if Bitcoin is the coin of his thinking, and then what do you have? If you had everyone thinking like Buckminster Fuller, the world would be a dramatically and drastically different place. And with Bitcoin, we can get to that place, and we are getting to that place, and it is happening right now, Robert.
He ever mentioned this guy, Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller. And Fuller really changed my life. It changed Kim's life. And he predicted Bitcoin. He predicted YouTube. He predicted the internet because he was a futurist. But Critical Path here is an important book, Max, today, because it's pretty precarious today. And
I'll give you an interesting exercise you can do, Robert, is that I have that book. I think I had to buy the book 4 or 5 times because, you move and you lose stuff. And I'm like, where's my critical path? I think I'm up to my 5th copy. But it actually also works as a book of prophecy, like you might use the I Ching. With the I Ching, you can construct a mandala or a 6-sided symbol, and then you consult the book, and it gives you prophetic insights into your future. And there's a whole Asian and Eastern kind of philosophy around this that's alien to most Western thoughts. But anyway, there it is. So with the critical path, you can randomly open the book to any page and put your finger down and read what's on there. And it works just like the I Ching. It's a book of prophecy into your personal journey as well. That's the amazing thing about the book. People who read it for the first time, they say, this is actually a hard book to read, because he does use his phrases like angular redundancy, right? So he makes up phrases, or he creates phrases. He neologistically, he creates these interesting phrases all the time, and they're completely alien to your ears. And you're like, where am I? What's going on? Why is this man saying this? Right? So because he's breaking up your conscious thinking, and he's probing you. And so you're bringing stuff out, and so that's the stuff you need to look at to know who you are, and therefore where you're going.
Why we started the company was to not be a victim of the future. He said, we are to be the architects of the future, not as victims. Yeah. And so with that, we formed the Rich Dad Company to do what God wanted done, which is educate.
Yes, and so my question, that's a great line, because we're designed to be architects of the future, not victims. And so my question to Max is, how do we, from where we are today, and be those architects of the future, because the future is looking rather chaotic.
We have somebody else in our midst these days, like an Elon Musk, who has incredible confidence as an engineer, who is putting out things that are incredible products, and scientific products, and engineering products. And he's taken everybody on a bit of a journey, and he tries to articulate that journey in his own way. He's not a Buckminster Fuller. He would never write a book like Critical Path, but he is somebody who I think we can look to as similar to some degree, because he's somebody who has that confidence in themselves. Steve Jobs was also somebody who had the confidence as an engineer, as somebody who felt that they could architect the future and future-proof themselves. Then is that a gift? Can you learn that? Where does that come from? I think in Buckminster Fuller's case, he felt it was below the surface, and he needed to reach in to grab that. And the only way he could do it was to make that statement, I'm not going to work for money. Because if you're working for money, it is a very short-circuiting loop of the incentives are terrible, and you end up digging a personal and spiritual hole that you fall into. And so that's why a lot of people that I know, and and we've dealt with a lot of rich people throughout our careers, and many times rich people are miserable, because they never really are on a journey of self-discovery, and as a result, they are not miserable. Conversely, I've met many people all over the world who have maybe $5 to their name, who couldn't be happier, because they are completely comfortable with themselves, and they're completely comfortable with the world. And that to them is infinite riches. And when you say, you could be a gazillionaire, they're like, I am already, I am of planet Earth. I am already a gazillionaire. I don't need any more. I am with Earth. I am part of Earth, and you see this all over the world, Robert. And so this money is not the difference.
Well, that's why he wrote Grunge of Giants, and that's why Bitcoin, that's why he started saying with Bitcoin, because it was decentralized money, DeFi. So he was way ahead of his times right there.